Welcome to the Waves of Change podcast, where we aim to inspire the listener to awaken to their purpose and take the action required to live life on their own terms. My name is Darragh, confidence and mindset coach, speaker, entrepreneur and humanitarian. I will be sitting down with creators from all walks of life who grew through the waves of change in their lives to be making the impact in the world they are today. Ben, how are you doing, brother?
How you going, mate? I'm very well. Yourself?
Brother, I'm so excited to get chatting to you. It's been so long.
It has been a hot minute, hasn't it?
It's been a hot minute. Let me just say, so Ben, I'm just going to start by introducing you. Am I getting feedback there?
A touch, but no, that's okay.
That's sweet. So Ben is a certified holistic medicine practitioner with an impressive background in the sciences, specializing in a variety of holistic treatment methods. He treats each patient as a whole rather than an illness to be defeated. His treatment protocols work to regenerate his clients at a cellular level rather than the circus of chasing symptoms. Get in touch with us today to understand the modality of his practice and start healing your physiological and psychological disease. In other words, reclaim your health. The mission of Ben, the founder of Invictus Clinics, is in the service of humanity, arresting the degeneration of human condition, reverse engineering the causal factors of disease, allowing those in suffering the opportunity to enjoy the fullest experiences of life. Ben, welcome to the Waves of Change podcast. How are you doing today, brother?
I'm very well, thanks, Darragh, and thanks for having me on, mate. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for coming. Can you quickly, before we dive into what all of that means for the listener, give us a quick update or an update on where you're from, what life was like for you growing up, and where you're living today.
Yeah, okay. So I was born in Bunbury, Western Australia, and I suppose the most important part of my upbringing that led me to what I do now is that I lost all four of my grandparents to cancer, and that really
Wow.
That was, for better word, that pissed me off. I was quite, I was quite taken back that all four of them could be taken by the same thing, and there was at the time and still, medically speaking, there's no real rigorous way to treat this condition, and so at the young age of 7 years old, I said to my mum, as I was watching my grandfather pass away, I said, one day, Mum, I'm going to cure this shit. And
wow.
So that sort of led it must have been stuck in my unconscious, because everything I've done since then has been working toward what we do now. When I look back on it, but if you were to ask me at the time, over the years, what am I doing? I couldn't have told you. But looking back on it now, I can see how all the pieces got put together.
Came together. Wow. Big love to your family, first of all, and the grandparents. So growing up in Bunbury, what was that like real quickly?
Yeah, pretty cruisy. Wasn't I suppose I was quite an introvert as a kid, and going through my teenage years. Again, all for purpose, because it allowed me to focus on the things that I was interested in. I wasn't interested in out there. I was really interested in what was going on in the underbelly of life, so to speak, what you would consider the underbelly of life. They got me really interested in all things. So I started my journey in biochemistry and nutrition. I got excited about those two things, and that led me into human biology and understanding how the musculoskeletal system works and all the different systems of the body. So the musculoskeletal is where I started, because that was where I found performance was most prominent. And from there, I kind of just got more and more engaged and more involved in deeper understandings of every system of the body, and went off and did various courses and things to deepen my knowledge. As I came through all those learnings, I've started to understand that what I was being taught had a ceiling. And so where nutrition could take a person was, it had a ceiling. Then I got involved. Then I sort of, well, what's the next level of control? I thought, well, it's got to be the hormones, the glands, the government of the body. So I started playing with endocrinology, and I learned that had a ceiling. You get it to a certain point, but eventually it ran out of steam. It ran out of doorways. And so my pursuit of biochemistry, cellular biology, and then into endocrinology led me into looking deeper at the cellular structure, because I thought, well, if you take a look and see what nutrition is acting on, what endocrinology is acting on, what comprises the elements of the body that work in this fashion, it all comes down to cells. And so I thought, well, what controls the capacity or the condition of cells? And so it's got to be the environment that they're sitting in. So that led me to chemistry, and that's where I got in touch with some really cool people around the world that were already dealing in this type of thing, and learned from them. And now I've qualified in more things than I can remember, but it all packages together to form what we do now.
Yeah, wow, incredible. Two things quickly. One of my big mentors is Dr. Bruce Lipton. Do you know him, his work?
I do. I know of him. I don't know him personally, but I do know his work. Very clever man. And
yeah,
yes, I mean his message is very much aligned with how we operate. From the mental body in. It's the way that our perception controls our belief systems, controls our behaviors, which becomes our. And so when you're looking at the psyche of someone and the mindset, you can have a whole body experience through what you think and not actually ever experience that in reality. But your body can go through all the symptoms, all the things. And so that's one way that we work to reverse engineer causal factors, is we work on perception. The two major ways that we consume the outside world is through our perception and through what we consume in our foods and our fluids we put in our skin.
Incredible, because also similar to you, like Dr. Bruce Lipton went against the whole scientific community, I believe 50 something years ago, because he found a different way. And he's also responsible for bridging the true science, bridging the gap between the energetic spiritual world and the scientific world of the body. Can you elaborate on that and what your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose Dr. Bruce Lipton, he was teaching a theorem, a dogma, that was RNA to DNA to protein. That was the dogma that was developed. Forget the guys that developed that, doesn't matter. But that was the dogma that was originally around. And he went, well, hang on, no, that's not really how it works. A protein is a signal. There's a protein that creates a signal that drives the response from the RNA to produce something. It goes and takes a copy from something in the DNA that comes back and makes the thing do whatever it's supposed to do. So there's something else going on. So when you look above that, now you've got the quantum field. And this quantum field is the connection of energetics to intelligence. That's the bridge. So medical thinking or allopathic thinking, conventional thinking, is that this is a biomechanical machine, and you can simply take parts out and put parts back, and it works like a machine. The thing that's missing from that is the energetic experience and how that affects the body. And we can start getting into rabbit holes and millimeter waves and 5G and all this. We could really go down the path if we wanted to. We haven't got that long.
No, 100%. So what you've just said there, RNA, this is not where I wanted to go, but now that it's come to, so RNA, is that in relation to mRNA? Is that like, is mRNA now an extension of whatever RNA means? I don't know what that means.
Well, mRNA is a messenger RNA. So there's different types of, RNA is ribonucleic acid. And it moves through the Golgi apparatus, and it creates things, it builds things, generally speaking. So there's different types of RNA. One of them is mRNA, which is messenger RNA, and that's responsible for taking a copy. So when we get a signal so our little cell is in there and doing its thing, and it gets a signal from the outside world. That can be a hormone, a protein, I mean, it's all proteins, but could be any sort of signal. Could be a virus, it could be a hormone, it could be a steroid, it could be anything. If that signal, if the cell, if the signal has something the cell wants, or the cell needs to respond to that, it will respond to it via the receptors. The receptors then suggest to the cell, hey, there's this is here. Do we want this? If yes, then an effector will come around and link that up, and it will allow a vortex, make an opening, and allow this signal in. It's then determined, then the cell will go about understanding what it needs to perform the task or function or build the thing this signal's asking for. If it needs something else to be created, then those blueprints are captured in the DNA, the deoxyribonucleic acid, which is the double helix that sits in the nucleus. And the access path to that is through an RNA. So RNA will understand what it needs. It will go to the DNA. It will peel back the sleeve, and there's two major connections: the adenine, guanine, cytosine, and tyrosine connections in the DNA. It will peel back what it needs, find the part that it wants to copy that piece, and then take it back through the ribosomes and build that protein. It will build that thing, and then it can then perform the functional task of whatever it needs to do. So messenger RNA is just that. It is simply a vehicle in which to transport information from DNA and then make it into something.
Hey, so again, not the hole I was planning on going. So, but here we are.
Change it if you want to.
No, I will change it after this question, because yeah, what is your belief around the how mRNA technology is being used in today's vaccines?
Well, I suppose it's just creating the end product. So, I mean, just for my position, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm not for it. I'm not against it. I'm simply, give me all the information and I'll make my own decision for me, and you can make it for you. And we're all good.
Yeah.
So, well, it's all love, peace, and harmony anyway. So the mRNA vaccines, and these were developed back in the 1980s. This is not new technology. This is old tech. What I understand has happened, and I'm not a credible source of this. I'm just hearing from third party different information. But what I understand is that the postulates or the process in which these vaccines or mRNA technology is supposed to be tested through wasn't followed with these COVID vaccines, and that's my understanding. I believe that the postulates weren't followed. Certain criteria was left out. Certain things were overlooked, and we've got a whole bunch of these vaccines that are kind of in trial in the human populace, and we're seeing the result of that. So anyway, that's that.
Cool.
Now, the credibility of mRNA, to my mind, here's how I think about it. You've got a vaccine that's a protein-based vaccine, the old school vaccines. It's basically when they go through their process of identifying virus or identifying disease, they'll take tissue samples from supposedly infected people. They will pull them apart through a very particular process that's well documented. And they'll put it in centrifuge, and they'll spin all the things off, and they'll identify all the particulates, and they'll find an anomaly. That anomaly needs to be found over X amount of samples. Let's say it's 1,000 samples. If they find that same anomaly, they can't identify in a whole bunch of samples, they go, okay, guys, we've got a virus. Here it is. Let's then create a weakened version of that thing, suspend it in a solution, and offer it to the human population as a vaccine after we've tested it on 1 million lab rats to make sure they don't die. So that's kind of the process. Now, I understand that wasn't followed in this thing. So that's the weakened protein vaccine type of thing. So that's injecting the finished product. That's kind of that thing, and then the body can respond to that and do its perform its immune response and get used to the idea. The other situation, the mRNA vehicle, is allowing the cells to respond to the signal and then create its own exosome. So the exosome is almost, to my mind, it's the same thing. It's a weakened version, or it's a signal that suggests, hey, there's a threat, or there is something changing here. I'm going to go with something in here, because every symptom of a virus that you see is expectorant in nature. It's the internal environment of your body adjusting and pushing the waste out, pushing the overburden out. That's why snot, fever, on the toilet, lethargic, no appetite. The body's busy cleaning itself.
I get you.
Inside, and an mRNA vaccine brings that signal in. The cells can respond. If there is something to change in the environment, it will then produce the exosomes to inspire that change. Then the body shifts and away it goes. The difference being is that some people's internal environment is not too bad, and so they can experience nothing, not a symptom. They can test positive for every virus under the sun and not have a symptom, because their environment is balanced in that space. Then some people can have an overwhelming response and die. That's why this is how. So the point of power for people is how you control, how you work with, and how you facilitate a clean and balanced internal environment. And if you can keep this thing fluid and moving, nothing's going to get you. The only thing that will cause a disease in the body is obstruction. That's it. If you get the body free of obstructions, the thing can clear whatever it wants. I mean, you can only imagine how many chemicals and things are in fast food that our bodies clear on the daily. And we can back ourselves up with that nonsense and have an immune response to that.
It's like, again, you're the most highly qualified person I could ever speak to on this subject. So thanks for answering that. And there's another, not a myth, but there's a thing going around that it actually weakens your immune system. Is that true?
Oh, that's something to be tested in 15 years' time. I can't answer that question. There's some theories around spike protein and how it is affecting certain pathways. But that's considering one thing. Remember, the body's always evolving. And so a weakened immune system now, I mean, that's the thing. Point to me and show me your immune system. Where is it in the body?
True.
Where's the immune system? It's not. Everything is immune. Like every part of you has an element of an immune system, largely contained in the lymphatic compartment of the lymphatic area of the body, lymphatic system of the body. That's largely where our immune responses are located or come from. But every area of the body has some level of immune response and ability to respond to something, to a change. So it's a difficult thing to suggest it weakens your immune system, because if it really did that, we would have people dropping from everything. I haven't heard that happening. I haven't heard of an uprise of other conditions occurring. I mean, there is the vaccine-related myocarditis and all this type of thing going on. But whether that's triggering an underlying thing that's already there that would have happened anyway, whether it is actually the body's response to change. And this is the thing, like we can get into talking about healing crisis, and we have some people go through some horrendous things on our journey that we take them through. That you would consider like, whoa, you would not put someone through that. But on the other side of it is an abundance of health and a step up in awareness and expansion of self, human. So it's very hard to say.
It's there's not enough window to choose from. And just for the listener, this part, the real reason, one of the main reasons I invited Ben on, we worked together for almost a year, a couple of years ago, and Ben, what I witnessed, many of your clients go through, what it is you do, but one of the biggest things that I recognized that you helped reverse was cancer. Can you tell us a bit about what that process is like, and then a rough guesstimation of how many people have been guided by you through that process?
So I couldn't tell you exactly how many. There's been quite a number of people go through the process. There's the process that we use. So I'll give you an idea what cancer actually is. The symptom of cancer, when you point at something and say that's cancer, they're looking at a tumor or looking at a section of tissue that has been flipped into an atypical state and started to mutate and lost control of its reproduction, and it's just it's undergoing rapid mitosis. And that forms what they say is a cancer. Now you can call it whatever you want to call it, but it's a symptom. It's a symptom of something else. So it's very, very rare that a tumor or anything of that sort will actually kill somebody unless it's pressing against something important or it's obstructing an organ that has grave importance to the human function. Then it's a problem. Then you want a good surgeon to get in there and whip that out. That's a good day, give you some space this stuff. But so I'll just start by saying too that I'm often I'm often thought to be opposed to allopathy, to medical science. I'm not one bit. I respect the allopathic community and I respect medicine for what it is, but I understand and I acknowledge it for its role in emergency. Now, when you have an emergency, when there's something critical, when your life is in immediate danger, those are the people that will save your life. Don't come to me with a snake bite. If you fall off a cliff, don't come to me. Go to the hospital. Get yourself sorted out. Get out of the critical state, and then you would come to see someone like me, and we will take you along the path back to Wellville, back to full health and full expression. The common theme is that the common understanding is that health is just on the other side of pain. So if you're not in pain, then you must be healthy. That's not the case. Chances are your body's compensated for a very long time, right down to a point of pain, and then it flips into an emergency, and that's when you want the medical community to help you out. Once you get out of that critical phase, then we can do the work to get you back to life. Because life's way over here, and compensation is in here, and then pain, and then destruction. So cancer is largely it's an accumulation. It is a condition of accumulation in the body. So where you've got life down here. So I don't know, is this a video recording, Darragh? Is this going to go up as the video?
Both, yeah.
So I can do some, stuff.
Yeah, far away.
So life is over here. This is the green zone, we call it. And that's got no end to that. That keeps going. There's untold limits, untold levels to life. Then in the middle we have this blue zone. So I call this thing the bar. This is the bar and how I explain how we get ourselves in a disease. The blue zone is our body's ability to cope and compensate for our mistakes, essentially, what we consume via perception, via consumption. And it also, there's a level that can be pre-imposed here from genetics, what we got from mum and dad. So this blue bar is our body's ability to compensate and cope. Some people have quite an extensive ability to cope and compensate. These are the people that can smoke and drink and party hard for 90 years solid and then die of old age. And some people can live a relatively healthy life and run into problems, mid-30s. So this blue bar. When this blue bar ends up backing up to a point, so we cope and compensate to a point of pain. Now the pain is where the blue meets the red. Where the blue meets the red, we start to feel pain. Now this can be confusion in the mind. It can be that little ache here that won't go away. This guts just aren't working so well. Geez, this headache just comes and goes. It's the stuff that we don't pay much attention to because we're just so busy. Everyone's so busy. And so then we ignore it. We pop Panadol and we do the things that we need to do to keep ourselves going. Eventually, if we left too long, this eventually runs into middle of the red zone and something breaks. And that could be that could be anything at all. It could be a gastric distress. It could be something to do with the cardiovascular system. It could be, oh shit, the back just went. It could be a pop tendon. It could be any form of things. Reoccurring migraines, anything at all. And then we end up in the hospital, end up in the doctor's surgery asking, what's wrong with me? How do I fix this? They then look at the symptoms, and their training is symptom reductive. So how do we reduce these symptoms? Okay. Here's the anti-inflammatories, the antibiotics. Here's a bit of surgery if required, and then we're going to, pile up with drugs and keep that subdued. We're going to add some hormones to balance this out. It's all symptom reductive, and so they treat the symptom. The cause is still bubbling underneath, and then what happens, because the body is always evolving. You're putting in pharmaceutical chemistry, which is going in and cranking the chemistry of the body, and trying to hold it in a certain place, and eventually what happens is the body gets to a point, eventually that red zone keeps backing up to a point that something else breaks. And so you got a pill for a pill for a pill. These pills apply pressure to the body. They're symptom reductive. They're pushing symptoms back in and then back on the cause. And when you apply a pressure to anything, only two things can happen. Either it blows up or it caves in. And so if it blows up, they'll medicate it back down. If it caves in, they'll stimulate it back up. And so again, a pill for a pill for a pill. And when this happens now, you're in what we call a pain cycle. You're cycling through pain. And you're always just on the other side of pain, just here in the blue and back in, and then being medicated back out of the pain, back into the blue. So there's all this before you even tickle life again. So cancer is where this is whole blue bar backed up. And there's one fundamental way that happens, and that is the lymphatic system in the body stopped working correctly, metabolic waste piled up inside, spilled back in the house, started burning, the body responded. We didn't do anything about it because we don't know about that stuff yet. Other symptoms occurred. Eventually, we have a situation where these metabolic wastes, which are very acidic in nature, they're very hot stuff, very, very hot stuff. They eventually burn through a cell wall, end up intracellular, and now there's an opportunity for them to flip that into mutation. Most of the time, those cells will die, and you'll never hear about them again. It's the low percentage that will flip and eventually become mutated, and now you've got a cancer. So that's how all cancers form. Doesn't matter where it is in the body, because aside from that or above that, there is simply location presentation. Did it occur in the liver? Did it occur in the lung? Did it occur in the bowel? And it becomes bowel cancer, liver cancer. And they treat these things differently. They call them different things. There's different research centers based on different things. And one cancer is not as bad as this one. It's all the same stuff. It's just certain locations are more problematic than others. So if you've got bowel cancer, well, you need your gut working. So if you've got a bowel cancer and it's high up, you're going to be in a bit more strife than someone that's got a bit of cancer in their hip. So the way we correct this is we go after the internal environment. It's the environment that got stagnant in the first place. So we need to correct this thing. That comes down to a chemistry situation. So if we pull it right back and look at what actually makes up the human is a very, very simple thing. It's wonderfully complex in function, but very, very simple in the build. It's a whole bunch of cells, just cells, and they all different ways to perform a common task. And touching every single one of those cells is two fluids. One of those fluids is blood. That is the kitchen of the body. That's the one. That's the fluid that nourishes all the cells and brings the oxygen, brings the nutrients. The other fluid is lymphatic fluid, which is a lipid-based fluid, and that's the cleaner. So cells will consume from the blood. All cells must eat. They will combust. They will do their thing. They will perform their functional task, whatever they have to do, and they will excrete waste. And that waste goes into that lymphatic fluid, which then gets transported in a functioning system. It's transported to the lymph nodes. The lymph nodes contain bacteria. They contain a bunch of things. One of them is bacteria that will chew down on those metabolic wastes, which are around 3 pH, which is about the same as a fizzy drink like Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
For a time it's going to burn. So the bacteria chews that down. What it excretes is a much cooler substance that continues down the lymphatic pathway into the kidneys, the bottom part of the kidneys. The blood goes in the top of the kidneys. Whatever crap is in the blood plasma, the urobilinogen, the bilirubins, those sort of things get filtered out of the blood and drop down into that lymphatic compartment of the kidneys. That, coupled with everything else coming in, gets pushed into the urinary bladder and out by the urine. So that is the process of a functioning system. And what we do to ourselves, and this just quickly on the body, we are a carbon-based creature. So our blood is around 7.35 pH, slightly alkaline. Our lymph is around 6-ish pH, so slightly acidic. So we operate we're more on the alkaline side than acidic side. On the carbon side, we are carbon creatures. We thrive on sugar. That's our fuel, jet fuel. And we reside in a slightly alkaline internal chemistry, and that keeps us fluid and moving. So when we consume a diet that is heavy in acid ash, and these things are meat, eggs, dairy, wheat, grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds, those 8 products, which is the primary diet of most people, this is giving off, in various degrees, an acid ash residue in the body. When we consume, this thing's simply a furnace. And so it combusts the fuel. And so if you go and put plastic in your fireplace, you end up with real sticky residue. And you eat dairy or gluten, you get plastic residue inside and it gums things up. When if you give your fireplace a mallee root, it burns to nothing, and the ash is quite light and fluffy. So when we consume the alkaline side of chemistry, which is our fruits, our melons, our berries, salads, and to a lesser degree veg, these things, when they combust, we get the potassiums, we get the carbons. These things that just don't impact anything. They're easy to clear. and they don't cause obstruction in the body. So with the acid, when we're consuming foods that are giving off the acid ash and a mucus forming, we end up with agglomerations. These agglomerations and impactions in the body, which start to gum the walls up. Our body can't move as fluid as it should. Eventually, the overburden of the acidic chemistry starts to impact the kidneys. The kidneys start to get hypo in function, in lymphatic function. And now you have the pipes backing up, the waste pipes backing up. They'll back up into the lymph nodes. Lymph nodes will fill up, and then you're spilling into the house in here. And now the burn can start. And this is the cause. What we have found in our experience and in the experience of my peers around the world is that this is the causal factor of 99% of the diseases and conditions that we see in the human. It's just location, presentation, how it shows up and where.
How it shows up and where, and they just name it differently, and that's amazing. So what I'm when Ben said like,
sorry, mate.
Well,
avenues that we could go down. There's
yeah. Well, it also shows the magnitude of what this human anatomy controls, the machine, the beauty, the spirit, like everything that it is. So thank you to my body and everything that makes me function today and every day. But when Ben said he pointed in here, when he said in here, he was pointing inside to his body. And as you were speaking there, what I take from that is it's like the bottom of the kidney is like the filter system. So if all of this poison or whatever you'd like to call it for a better name is all getting filtered into there. And the liver as well, because the liver replenishes and that's where it breaks most of this stuff down. Whatever it can't break down sticks up inside of that filter, and then eventually it clogs up. So once it clogs up, then like a toilet or a bathroom, eventually it overflows back into the body, back into the system. That's where the disease is found, and viruses come to life. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, sort of. So yeah, you're exactly right. So back up in the body, spills in the body. Now you've got to burn. And so the very first thing the body will do, so as this stuff, as the waste system starts to build up and spill into the body, we'll call this the house. So the kitchen and the bin. So when the kitchen bin fills up, you empty it. And if you don't empty it, it's going to spill into your kitchen and starts to stink the house out. And that's what happens. This is where I even just offshoot here, human odor. BO, body odor. We should not stink. If you took some people that you can smell, and they are, whew, man, they're on the nose. If you put that person, if you put them in the fridge and you open your fridge and smelt that, you would chuck that thing out. That'd be no good, right?
Yeah.
That's how we've got to change our thinking. We shouldn't smell like that. When we smell like that, we are breaking down. Our body, our bacteria is breaking stuff down, nitrogenous matter down. And that's the smell. So we've got too many proteins, too much nitrogen, which essentially is acidic wastes. Mm-hmm. And they're pumping out through the skin and the lymph nodes in the axial nodes up here in the under the armpits and down the groin. And this is where we stink the most in these events, is because that's where the waste is piling up. It's backing up into these little tanks, and bacteria is going nuts, and it can't get it out through the main channel. So it's going to shove it out through the skin. It's going to take it out of anywhere. And so, so you're right. So the system backs up. The kidneys are the major filters. The skin is the backup filter. So if the kidneys go down, the skin takes over. So people with bad skin and just can't get rid of this skin condition, start looking at your kidneys. I almost guarantee that someone with really bad skin is going to have something like a little bit of gastric distress. They're going to have tight hips, maybe a sore lower back, or some kind of issue with their lower back. They're going to have something going on. Females, there might be a little bit of endometriosis. There may be a little bit of PCOS going on, irregular menses. When the kidneys back up and they spill, we start to see these issues in the abdomen and around the pelvis. So backs up, spills in the house. The very first thing that happens is that cholesterol starts to rise. Cholesterol is our major acid. Cholesterol makes up most of our lymph fluids, lipid-based fluid. And so cholesterol will rise. First indicator that the body is burning on the inside. When you go to the doctor and take bloods and they come back to you and they say, hey, your cholesterol is high, instead of thinking, shit, my cholesterol's out of whack, I've got to get some statins and block that liver enzyme so we can't produce any more cholesterol. No. We've got to go after what's causing the cholesterol to have to rise in the first place. It's only responding to a situation. That situation.
Yeah. Look at defense mechanism.
100%. Taking away the body's ability to respond to that burn is only going to allow that burn to rate, pillage, and plunder faster. And both conditions are not good. You can't let cholesterol keep climbing, but you also can't let the burn stay there either. But it's the understanding of how the burn got there and how you need to get rid of that burn. That's the part that people haven't quite got the grasp of. And so that again comes down to that internal chemistry. So back to you're right in what you say. Spills into the body, creates a burn, and then that, depending on where the body is weakest, generally it's a genetic weakness, that will break first, and that will produce a symptom, and that symptom then gets labeled by allopathy, and they go after it with suppressive medications. Virus loading is different. Viral loading's probably safe to say that every person on the planet would have multiple viral loadings in them at any given moment. Viral loadings are only activated when the body needs them. So virus being, the idea that virus is the bad guy is a little, that's not my way of thinking. My way of thinking is virus is there to serve us when we don't serve ourselves. It's like, when the old saying, if you don't move, life's going to move on you. And when it does, it's going to usually come with a few bumps and rumbles. So below, right? So with the human body, with this body, if we don't serve this body the way it needs to be served to inspire life and all the good stuff, then eventually it's going to do something for us, and it generally hurts. And viral loadings can play a part in that. So just even a cold, nothing is immune to the law of chemistry. And so when we're looking at hot and cold, the hot is the acid, the cold is the alcohol and the cooling. That's why we get a cold in winter. When it gets cold, we start to get snot and all the things and fevers and stuff comes out of our body. It's the body's way of cleaning itself. Yeah.
So that's, wow, I could chat to you all day. But Ben, can you give us an update on your latest, I don't know what to call them, patients or clients or friends, or your latest cancer? What would you call them in your eyes?
We've had many. We've had a gentleman with bladder cancer. He actually didn't know he had bladder cancer. We actually were after him for skin cancers and for fungus infestations through his body, and we cleaned them out. And as a result of that, he started passing these, we'll call them tumours, out through the urine. The big blobs of big blobs of matter, or a mass filled with blood and things. And there's a few of them that came through, and he went, oh. So he took himself to the doctor to figure out what it was. Did an ultrasound and found there was a cluster of tumours in his bladder. And so he called me. He said, look, what do we do? I said, what do you want to do? And he goes, well, 3 choices I feel I got. Do nothing. I don't feel like doing nothing. I want to do something about it. He said, wait 3 months and see if they all clear. Or 3, just get it done. Go in and have the thing done. And so we spoke about some clever questions to ask the surgeon to make sure that the surgery was as safe as it could be. And it was. We asked where are these tumours positioned in the bladder? If you happen to blow through the wall of the bladder, what's it going to hit? Is there bowel behind it? Whereabouts is it situated? And so we asked those questions. The specialist said, no, look, you're pretty clear. Even if we make a mistake, it's not going to cause any problems. Okay. And this surgeon was 37 years of experience and very, very highly regarded. So he went in and performed the procedure. A week later, this gentleman went back in for his post-op interview, or whatever you call it.
Checkup.
Consultation, yep. And the specialist said to him, listen, I want to know what you've been doing. And this fellow said, well, you tell me why. Why do you want to know? And he said, because mate, in 37 years of practice, I have never seen anything like that. He said, I went in with the wand. He said, I applied no heat, had to cut nothing. I touched these things and they came away completely packaged up. He said, I've never seen it in my life. He said,
Wow.
he said, I can tell you from my experience that the lab's going to come back with an inconclusive result on these things. They're not going to really know what they are. And sure enough, they come back and they suggested, look, they are carcinogenic. They have got a carcinoma bump to them, and they're also not a problem. So they were on the fence as to which way to go, which way to assume these things were. So anyway, left it alone, all said and done. And so that was a really cool win. We had another lady who had bowel. They called it cancer. There was a lot going on for her. It wasn't just a cancer. There was a whole magnitude of things going on with her autonomic nervous system, a whole bunch of things going on. And she almost passed away. So I think it was a month ago last year, she had the family around. They were saying, listen, time to say goodbye. Not going to make it. And she made it. And so from there, she started working with us, because this was quite a long journey up to this point that she'd gotten to. It wasn't, they'd run out of options. They were starting to talk about trial medicines, and they were, and it wasn't sounding very good. So she found us, we spoke, got into it, and she was given the all clear months ago. I can't actually remember when she was given the all clear, but medically she was absolutely sorted months ago. And now we're working, again, that blue bar. So, just outside of pain, a little bit back from that, medical doctors can go, yeah, nah, you're right to go, good stuff. But there's all this. So now, and this person, she is just a powerhouse, an absolute powerhouse, and she's on her way. So we're about to embark on the performance work that we do with Invictus. So we have the detoxification and regeneration, and then we have the performance. So if people want to go right through, we'll walk with you all the way through.
Yeah. So is the performance like back to, let's say, fighting health, or up to running a marathon type of stuff? Is it?
Whatever they want to do, whatever they want to achieve. Some
just
people
up to full strength.
Yeah, that's right. See how far you can power up. I mean, yourself, when you go through something, anything, when you achieve something, and all of a sudden you feel a much higher capacity, like you can climb the mountaintop, we can climb the cliff, and there's like little ledges on the way up, and you get to the ledge, and in order to get to the next face, you've got to take a leap and grab the next face to start. Sometimes you can take the leap and get there and go. Other times you're not sure, and if you leave it too long, your hands get tired and you slide a little bit back down that original face. So these people are motivated to jump to those next ledges. So we've gotten the body's detoxified, it's clean, it's moving. We've taken the time, we've spent the time to regenerate the compartments of the body. Because as the body regenerates, it's like a renovation. It's as it pulls things down, everything in nature is pulled down and rebuilt. This is why a bushfire will rip complete vegetation out, and then you'll see it all come back beautiful. There's no little pieces that come and go. It's just you wipe it out and go again. The same thing in the body. When there is damaged material, when there's damaged areas of a body, the body will, once it's detoxed and functioning and you're giving it good nutrition and it can fuel itself correctly, it will start to immobilize areas. And we've seen this. We've seen paralysis occur in people. People get locked up and stuck, and to a degree. And the body will start to take down parts of compartments of the body. And we refer to these as healing crises. Yeah. And so that will happen. It can take a little while. And then eventually the body will start to rebuild, renovate that area. So first things first is demolition first. And in some cases, areas of the body will become restricted and immobile. And then the rebuild occurs, and what comes back is incredible. Yeah. And just quickly, what I got from that as well, when you spoke about the man and his bladder and whatever you were doing, like your method, what I'm guessing here is whatever your methods were helped to heal what was like gave the doctors a head start on what was actually inside his bladder. Is that correct? That's exactly right. Because when you consider that everything comes from one thing, and so I haven't seen anything that hasn't come from a backed up lymph system. And so when you correct that, someone can come and see me and go, I've got gastric distress. I I can't do X, Y, and Z. Okay, no problem. I know in my mind, there's going to be more stuff going on for you. And I know in my mind, you have been through things that are going to come out as we reverse engineer this process. So you come out the same way you go in. Some people that have had a dicky knee for years, and suddenly that knee's okay, and now they've got this ripping gut pain. As we correct the gut, we're not even looking at the gut, we're just correcting the lymph system and giving the body its chemical balance back, and the body does the rest. They'll start to feel that knee again, because the knee will get looked at again. You know, when you get a certain pain and that pain just goes away magically, but nothing's changed, you can bet your bottom dollar the body has simply just locked that up. And you'll notice that there'll be limited movement in it, and it won't work as well as it should. It won't have the strength that it does. It won't have the neurological connection that it does. And then when you give it space and room to be able to correct, go in and unpack it and correct it, it'll unpack it. You'll feel the pain again, like, oh, that's come back. And then it'll go about repairing it. And then you'll find you'll get more range of motion, more mobility, you get much better neurology. It'll feel stronger. And your strength comes from your neurology, the way your neurons connect and fire. So
yeah. So how long does your process, the Invictus process, take?
It depends on the person's situation and their ability and their body's ability to respond. So one thing I do is iridology. I'm an iridologist, a lymphatic iridologist. So we use iridology to understand what the path for a particular person is going to look like. And so when I see blue eyes, really tight spoke, trabecular, not a lot of genetic weakness, and they're telling me that they're lethargic and can't get out of bed, and they've always got this gastric distress, and I know that when we start, they are going to bounce. So I'll say to them, look, 3 to 6 months, let's lock in 6 months, and you are going to notice an enormous change in the first 6 weeks. And then from there, we get to stack on that and get back in that blue bar into life. Someone that comes to me with an iris that looks like a Hessian bag, and it's got holes all through it, and it's
what's an iris?
An iris is the iris of the eye.
Okay.
So the coloured part of the eye.
Yeah.
So when I see an iris that is blue, and the trabecular, the fibers of that iris are really tight and straight, and the person's telling me there's an issue going on with them, I know that they're going to bounce. That tells me that they're structurally they're strong. Yeah. And as soon as you make the changes, their body's going to bounce. Someone with a weaker constitution, meaning that in that trabecular, in those fibers, we're going to see holes, we're going to see discolorations, we're going to see maybe an iris that's out of shape and not looking circular, it's got an oblong shape to it. I'm going to say to that person, and they might be coming to see me about the fact their joints just
whatever
it might be. Or they may have a cancer problem. It doesn't actually matter what it is. That person, I'm going to suggest, look, let's go for 12 months, and because your process is going to take a little longer, and we're going to have to really employ the virtue of discipline and consistency to get this done. But the other side is what you're really working towards here, especially when we're dealing with the young ones, is that you get to set a new standard for your kids and their kids and their kids. Because what we do now affects humanity. So this is where the mission of Invictus is to arrest the decline of humanity, arrest the decline of the human condition and get it going back this way.
Yeah.
20 years ago, I never heard of a kid having cancer. And now they're everywhere. And people say it's genetic, it's hereditary, it's my father had it, so I'm going to have it. Bullshit. The only thing that's the same is the culture. Change the culture, you change the genetic.
And that brings it to Bruce Lipton, the epigenetics. He said, you change the environment, you change everything. It's not a genes thing, which is a huge myth in Western medicine. And that's a great segue into my next question. What is it like for you to operate your, Invictus Clinics with, the government environment of, especially now in Western Australia? But do you ever get any pushback off Western medicine or hospitals or, anything like that from your patients being told they've only got X amount of time to live, to coming out of your place with a full new lease of life, going on to have kids, or travel the world or whatever it is that they enjoy doing for adventure. Yeah. Does anything ever come back from that?
So the only things that come back. So generally when people come and see me, especially in the chronic states. So cancer is a word. It's their word, not my word. I don't use that term. So when they come to see me in whatever state they're in, a cancer state would be a chronic state, chronic degenerative state. And so that's where I'm going to meet them. That's where we're going to work. And there's many other chronic degenerative states that aren't called cancer in medical thinking. Anyway, by the time those people get to me, they're generally done with medical. They've had enough. And so they come to me and we work. And then as we go through the process, occasionally, sometimes, and especially with lung conditions, like lung cancers or a chronic degenerative lung condition, oftentimes as we're working with this, we need to ask the medical fraternity for assistance, because at times as we rehydrate the agglomerated and sticky matter, we can get fluid on the lungs. We can have these kind of things occur. So we need a good GP or a good medical doctor to aspirate and take fluid out of the lungs. Get someone in and just have them on just monitor their vitals for a night and just have them looked at, because healing crisis can get pretty hectic. Yeah. And so by the time they come to me, they're not really interested in what the medical doctors say anymore, and what they say makes a lot of sense. So we're usually pretty good. I often get asked a lot of questions based on the narrative coming from conventional medicine, but I don't really have a problem. I don't have any problem with it, because I've either got an answer for it or I don't. And what I've found is that I've generally got an answer for everything that makes a lot of sense. And then I also, there's that old saying that says, when you don't care, you can care the most. Well, I don't care, and therefore I can care the most. So I don't care I will have a conversation with you. I will offer you my understanding, my opinion, and I will walk with you every step of the way if you choose. But if you choose not to, I'm all the power to you and love to you. No problem. You do what you do, you. So yeah. I don't take any of that on. When you say to me, how do I go with the questions and any pushback, I don't accept that. I don't take any of it. I just offer my humble opinion and my understanding from what I know. And if it resonates with the person, it does, and we get to work together. If it doesn't, that's totally fine. Wow. There's never one way. There's more than one way in anything. Yeah, 100%. Let me ask you real quick, what is your time here? How long have you got left? I've got another meeting in half an hour, so we've got plenty of time. All right, perfect. So tell us about your team. How big is your network, your clinics? What is the different dynamics of the different areas of, everything? Yes. So we've got the Invictus Clinics. We've got myself. So I'm the guy. I'm currently training a number of proteges. So there's no one course that you can do for this work. There's a few different ways that we combine this stuff together, because it's not just the physical body we're dealing with. When we unpack the physical body, everything touches everything. So the physical body can accumulate. All dis-ease comes from accumulation, and the human has more than one body. We've got a physical body, we've got an emotional body, and a mental body, and then the accumulation of those three things you would call awareness or spirituality. And so when we start to unpack the agglomeration and accumulation in the physical body, the mental and emotional body often open up. So we've got to have a level of psychological understanding and a way to assist people and work with people in that space. Otherwise, we get to a certain point and people can freak out really quickly and run back to what's safe. Yeah. Which is and so we do a lot of work with people in the psychological space, and to help to keep them on their path, yes, on purpose, for purpose. So I'm training people. Yes, go. Just while I have you here, because I was going to raise this, what would you say to people that, they don't believe that these things are possible? Because Western medicine and so much here, because we had this with, the birth of fear,
what the medical system wanted to do with Saoirse, and even against our wishes. After being told, after being put in writing, after getting the birth plan, this lady kept coming in, and it didn't make sense because she was such a beautiful, such a kind lady. But she came in, put her gloves on to do an intervention, and as our plan, we chose not to have any interventions. We're going to be fully natural. So also the lady, she had forgotten her watch, so she brought in. We said no clocks in the room. And she brought in this fucking, the clock off the ward that goes tick, 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 So eventually she kept coming in. She kept doing it 3 or 4 times. Eventually Saoirse cracked and she just went, fuck off. I'm telling you now I'm having a baby. And so she gave full love and respect. She says, now I know you're having a baby from that reaction. So what we found out 2 weeks later when in the checkup was, there was an obstetrician who was in charge of the hospital on the other side of the door, who kept, because we were having like in a birthing suite, like a home birth, but obviously in a birthing suite in the hospital, she kept pushing her in because at the time, the Western medicine system just kept pushing her in, go do this, go do this, go do this, and eventually Saoirse cracked, so the woman stopped, and then. After Bodhi, who was our second child, we went back. We had a little bit of a scare that he wasn't breathing properly, right? So we went to the hospital, and the doctors wanted to put him under X-rays. They wanted to put a syringe into his spine, and they wanted to put a needle up his, up his penis into the bladder to do all of these tests. And every time the doctors kept saying, "Oh, he'll never remember this." And in our line of work, what I recognise is the body never forgets. So here I am, and also as part of that, like they invited Saoirse into a room and told me that there wasn't enough room for me. And when Saoirse went into that room, there was another 4 or 5 doctors in the room. She was cornered by 6 people, professionals, this, that, and the other, who all started to do their little stuff. Bodhi is only like a week old, 10 days old at this stage, and they start trying to put, needles up his penis and all of this type of stuff. And again, under the promise that, don't worry about it, he'll never remember, So what I recognized in that, and I'm glad I got to experience it personally, because it was not, because Saoirse came back in floods of tears, that even though, yes, I love the medical system has worked wonders on me personally throughout my whole life, knee injuries, my ear surgeries, loads of things. But, how we default to accept that as it's for the greater good. They're deciding to pull my body apart or poke me and trod me, which serves its purpose when it's a huge emergency. But for people just to automatically go back to that because it's comfortable, the default of it, and then also how doctors, as you say, they're given the format that if a symptom shows up, this is the drug to treat that symptom. Most of the time, it's never the underlying issue. So, for anybody who questions that, oh no, that can't be real, because the hospital system told us that unless you have chemotherapy or you go through all of these type of drugs, you get radiated to within an inch of your life, killing off a lot of other organs and all those type of things. So what would you say to people that would have that type of default / pessimism about what you do?
So I always invite people to challenge the prior assumption. Challenge the prior assumption. So I mean, in that situation there, firstly, the idea that an infant doesn't remember is not accurate. Where we've proven that many times. Anyway, that's one thing. But in terms of the default position of medical, so medical training is simply one form of training. That's it. It's not right, not wrong. It's one form of training, and either you agree and believe in that and you'll go that path, or you won't. The pressing nature of medical, and I'm seeing a contrast in medical people now. I'm seeing more medical people honouring people's decisions and honouring people's preference on things. And as soon as they say, look, no, thank you, no worries. Now, they'll always come back and offer it. Hey, are you sure? Yeah, no, I'm good, no problem. And then there's others, man, they will run you. Run you.
That was what it was like for us. They were just like, bomb, bomb, bomb. They came on.
This is rape.
Yeah, excuse me, laugh, but yeah, that's
it's like it's a forced opinion. It's what happened to the sovereign right? What happened to
and what, before you go ahead, like what I also recognized was it was almost robotic. I don't know if because I've been in the hospital system all my life, I've had many surgeries. I'm super grateful for what they've helped to, fix or recreate or replenish in my system. But I don't know whether it's because of the line of work I do now, I notice these things more, or but it almost felt robotic. No matter which different person I spoke to, it was like they were speaking from a manual. Between the lines, I noticed that. But go ahead.
That one form of training, it's one line of training. So, if you have this, then we must do that. There's and in their mind, in some of them, as I said, there is a bunch of medical doctors that do have more of an open mind, and they understand that there is more than one way. But there are still an awful lot of medical doctors out there that, because they are a doctor and they've trained to do this, this is the way, and there is no other way. So therefore, if you are presenting with this, we must do this, and you are an absolute idiot if you don't agree with me. To the point that I will make you sit in that chair and I will give you the thing because this is the best thing for you. I don't care. That's kind of how some of them show up. So, if you're asking me about pessimistic to what I do, that doesn't concern me at all. But someone that wants to have a conversation, if they're completely pessimistic to what I do and they're like, nah, no problem, like that's all sweet. But if they are on the fence and unsure, then come and have a conversation and let's talk. And you've asked me everything that you want to ask me. I'll provide you with my understanding of it. And if I make resounding sense to you, then chances are you're going to have a much better understanding of the why. You're going to be able to ask more levels of why, and that's the real key. Challenge the prior assumption and keep asking why until you get to a point where you go, well, shit, wow. People, I've got a hormone imbalance. I say, okay, why? Well, I don't know, because I eat this and I don't know. I mean, my grandma did that, and okay, but this is your body. Why? Why would you have a hormone imbalance? What produces hormones? Well, glands do. Cool. What controls the glands? Well, the nervous system does. Okay. What controls the nervous system?
Stress.
Yeah. All right. So now we've got perceptive modalities. Yeah. What also controls the glands? Well, the cellular function does. What controls the cells? Well, that comes down to environment. If they're happy, then if they're in a good environment, they're happy, they work. If they're in a poor environment, then they're going to be a little bit like underprivileged child in a third world country. They're not going to work so well. So we're back down to environment. So now we're back down to environment. What controls the environment? It's chemistry. Body's just a whole bunch of cells, two major fluids, blood and lymph, and the thing that controls the balance of those fluids or the flow of those fluids is chemistry. There's only two sides to that. There's acid, there's alkaline. We are an alkaline creature. We live just on the side of alkalinity. When we start pushing acid, we start to get all the effects of acids. We get dehydrated, we get sticky, we get stuck. Like hot oil on a frying pan, if that frying pan, that burn doesn't stop, that hot plate remains on and the oil's in there, it's fluid, it's moving, and all of a sudden it starts to change color, get coagulated, sticky, get stuck and burnt. And that's what we in the body. That's the various levels of degeneration the body goes through. Whilst the lymphatic fluid, there's two fluids, one of them has a pump and has to move. If it doesn't move, we're dead. The other one,
that's the blood, is that right?
Yeah. The
Yeah.
lymphatic fluid, which is the primary fluid, that's the majority fluid in the body. That requires us to move, to keep it moving. It requires a level of hydration and fluidity. It needs to be anionic. It needs to have an electron fuel, electron supplied fuel. So electron supplying fuel is your fruit, it's your salad. That keeps it fluid and moving. If that thing stacks up and gets stuck, and then we start to get the spill, that system then starts to impact and become sticky, and that's your stages of disease. You go from a fluid moving oil at a certain heat. That heat starts to rise because stuff starts to back up. Now that stuff starts to get yellow. You can think about the color changes of snot. Clear snot runs, goes to yellow, gets a bit stickier, more tactile, goes to like a greeny brown, gets even more chunky and clumpy and more tactile. You can't barely get it out. Then it goes to the brown and black and burnt. Now that's the dry cough. That's the stuff that just does not come out until you hydrate. So this is how we form dis-ease in the body, and then how that presents itself is wherever it breaks, however it shows up.
And just in a nutshell as well, if you're thinking of it like a car engine, when there's not enough oil in the engine, the engine overheats and then it begins to blow. So that's a similar situation, except we are the engine and the body is going to blow. And just before we move on, like, also what I'm highlighting is because a system told you that this is the way things should be done, it's not the only way. And I'm glad that you said that, Western medicine training is like one box. But, when you take psychology into it and the universe and, epigenetics and the environment and everything else, there's many different boxes to live in alignment and to also live in healing and perfect harmony. But also what came was, one of those doctors recommended 21 days of antibiotics for our son. This was before we even got the results of the X-ray. This is when we didn't know what was going on. So you don't know, we hadn't had the results of the X-ray, and they're wanting to pump him with 21 days of antibiotics, and we're like, he was fine. We just got a little bit worried. The next day we left the hospital, which was great. They honoured where we were at. I took it was a bit of button heads in regards to that, but they honoured what we were saying. We didn't go past the X-ray, and they just monitored him throughout the night, and he was fine. So what I'm getting at here is, just because some people, including us, tell you that this is the way things should be done, be open-minded enough to ask questions. Are there more ways of doing things that don't do as much damage to the system? What would you add to that?
Oh, that's the thing. A lot of people that I talk to, whether that's in clinic, whether it's over the phone, people can call up and they might happen to get me on the phone, and they ask questions, and they say to me, like, I went and saw the GP, I went to the specialist, and I said, oh, what did they say? And very, very often the answer is, oh, well, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what he said. Like, I remember what he said, but I don't know what it means. And so this is the lack of understanding. When the Western medicine has a very particular place in emergency. If you go in with a bone mitral valve, they are going to find that and they are going to do what they can to fix it. It's a very much see fix. When it comes to healing the human body from the effects of acidosis, that's not their gig. Actual healing that's not their gig. They are emergency responders. That's what they do. So oftentimes when someone goes in for a chronic condition, that's not, it's a chronic condition, the answers are vague. And so, quite rightly, ask questions. If it doesn't make sense to you, if it doesn't make plain sense to you, ask questions. And what tends to happen is when you ask the medical doctors questions, deepening questions on a topic that they've tried to explain to you that you can't understand, generally you'll find they will start saying the same things over and over and over again. So you know they're simply in their mind, they're back in their manual going, well, that's all there is to this, you know. But they're level 5 thinking, they're level 5th rung of the thing. They're symptomology. Then you've got structure, function, or you've got structure, you've got function, fluids, and then you've got environment. So you've got 5 rungs to get down before you get down to the actual cause of this thing. And that's not where doctors play. It's not their training. And so you can't hold them harmful to that, but you can take responsibility for yourself and ask questions and find someone that you can have a conversation with that actually makes sense and can articulate a strategy to help you improve. That also makes sense. And then you adopt that, and everyone should take a presupposed position that this body will respond very quickly when you give it the right things, when you give it the right fuel, when you give it the right signals. And so you make a radical change in your consciousness in the way you do things, you can expect that this body is going to give you some positive feedback. It's going to give you some feedback within a few days. You're going to know you're on the right path within a few days.
Yeah, that's huge. Huge. And just like, as I said about at some stage when I was talking to them, I recognized that robotic answer. I was like, it was strange. But so just to come on from that then, natural medicine, plant medicine, the intelligence of plant medicine, and what are your thoughts on that in regards to, one, it being alternative, even though it grows on the planet for centuries and centuries, thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, and then two,
you start playing with isolated chemistry. That's alternative. Go back to mother.
To the what's created from chemicals and rubber and all of that type of stuff. But what role plant medicine and the intelligence of plant medicine has in healing today's world?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what we use. We use the plants. The plants, everything put here in creation was designed to work in unison. And so we have the herbs that it's been noted over centuries, and even Hippocrates, back in the 15th century, whenever he was around, he identified these things. He had so many branches to the way he would deduce things. The part that got pulled forward was what we know today as conventional medicine. The rest of it kind of got forgotten. And so, and then you got the Ayurvedics that picked up a lot of the Ayurvedic type of medicine. You got the Chinese medicine. What else is there? There's a whole bunch of other ones, but they're the two main ones that stick out. But the herbs, the intelligence of herbs, I mean, when you consider that this whole planet has evolved from wherever it started to now, and everything has been brought forward through the generations. And plant medicine has always been there. We go through this process of isolating chemistry from plants. I mean, all medicines, well, the majority of allopathic medicines come from plants originally, but the problem is that they'll take a plant, they'll identify the thing in it that does the most, has a certain action within the human, take that, isolate that, and concentrate it. But now you've taken isolated chemistry, put it in a body, you've cranked chemistry in the body, and now you've got a shock to the system, and the body can't work its way around. It gets stuck, so something else falls out of place. And so pill. Whereas when you have the whole plant, the intelligence of the plants comes in the entirety of its makeup. And so it's got the little piece in there that would be isolated by allopathy, but it's also got everything else. You only look at cannabis. You take THC and isolate THC, you've got a poison as such. You take Himalayan orchid, you take a substance from that, and you've got a poison. You have the whole plant as a whole, and you've got a wonderful medicine, a beautifully constructed medicine that will improve your health. And then you've got to get back to the fundamentals of what causes disease in the body. It's chemistry. You're looking at chemistry in the first and foremost position. And the thing that controls that is what we consume. So you can use the herbs and the plants to control your ailments. This is what we have naturopathy. Naturopathy has no different thinking to allopathy. Just one uses substance that can potentially hurt you, and naturopathy uses substances that are less likely to hurt you, but they're both symptom reductive. Chasing symptoms. Cool. You keep looking underneath. If you really want to experience what this human body can allow you to do, then get back to the fundamentals of consumption, how you perceive things and what you consume. Get yourself to a more alkaline diet. It doesn't need to be 100%, but the old 70-30, 70% fruits, melons, berries, salt, and veg, and then 30% whatever else. Just steer clear of gluten and dairy and anything heavily processed. That stuff really gums people up.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the flow. Get that chemical balance correct. You'll find that you'll be largely ailment free. You won't have a need to go. So yeah, that's where I would be going. Chase that chemical balance. That chemical balance is. What I was going to say on that was that this body, the human body, was not designed. I don't think the intention of the creator was for us to spend all of our time looking at this thing. We are so focused on our bodies that I'm sure that we've, as a race and species, have missed a whole bunch of good shit happening out here in creation. So, the intention for me, and where I like to inspire people to get to, is a position where they can put some stuff in the filler cap, fill the tank up, all the systems and pipes are working correctly. This thing just works. It just works, set and forget. And then you can take your attention off this thing and experience what's really out there. And we're here to experience life. And part of it is that this thing is designed to support us in experiencing what's out here in creation, and allow us to create more, and do more and have more fun. So
yeah, I love that. Ben, I've got two more questions really quickly. What is it like for, a cancer patient client who has been told they've got X amount of time to live, and go through your clinics and get to the other side of that? What is it like for them, to realize they are now free of this disease and free to live a life however they see?
The first thing that comes to mind is powerful. They feel powerful because they know that they did it. That's the biggest thing. They didn't have to rely on anyone. I'm involved to help them understand, but once they understand, I had nothing to do with it. It's they do it for them. They take full responsibility for themselves. And when they truly embrace the fact that they have an ability to respond to this, in terms of, in fact, responsibility, then off they go. And so what they get from that is a new sense of power, real self-belief. When they were kids and they were at life, they were here, and they go on their journey, and they might have some issues in high school, and they might, do this, and then they have cancer, and they're probably going to die. When they understand, I mean, as we know, the greater the challenge, the bigger the potential.
Yeah.
So they go block down here, and they might come and see me and say, I've been told 6 months to live. That's it. I'm open for anything. I will literally eat dog shit and broken glass if you tell me it's going to cure me. Okay, well, I won't do that, but what I will tell you is this, and off we go. And if they embrace it and they lean in and they really get going, and we inspire people, don't even consider that you're going to die, or do whatever motivates you. If you have a strong enough away from motivation to move away from death, and we'll install some really powerful toward motivators, because what are you going to do when you've got full life back under your feet? get that going and get them going. By the time they start their journey, they eventually get to a point where they don't even care if they've got cancer or not, because they just feel so bloody good. They're so full of energy. And in that moment, you can see them, you can hear it in their voice, that they experience what it really means to believe in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Where they started here as kids, and they do this, and they are here, and they go, and they get to here, and they go, wow, it just keeps going. And so what they understand their capacity of life and expression is expands. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So
Wow.
Many things that I could say on that.
Beautiful. Last question. What does the waves of change mean to you?
The waves of change.
Mm-hmm.
People that come, waves of change to me, the immediate thing I get is people connecting with the fact, with the sense that they have an ability to respond for themselves. That in itself will create a wave of change like no other. Mother Teresa once said, if everyone just cleaned their own doorstep, just their own, we'd have a beautiful world.
Mm-hmm.
And so that can be that could be applied to the self. You know, if everyone took complete and total responsibility for themselves and chose that they have the ability to respond for themselves from a place of power, from a place of cause to anything, we would see an extraordinary change in the world.
Wow, Ben, it's been an absolute pleasure. Mind-blowing, but beautiful conversation, man. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your time. And hopefully I'll get to see you at some stage with the crazy man over there. But Ben, I'll let you go. I'll give you back your day. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If anything resonated for you, please leave a comment below. If there's anyone who may need to hear, please share. I love yous. Have a lovely day.